NaNoWriMo starts tomorrow. So if you want to know how you can actually win NaNoWriMo, then this video is for you.
You can't say you didn't see this coming. Finally got some inspiration right again.
If you are unfamiliar about what NaNoWriMo is, then let me quickly grab my phone and tell you all about it. So NaNoWriMo stands for National Novel Writing Month, and it's a worldwide challenge where writers all over the world aim for the same goal: write 50,000 words in a completely new story over the course of 30 days during the month of November. Now, there have been many different variations on NaNoWriMo, from NaNoWriMo Rebels, which I am one of this year, but the usual goal is to write 50,000 words in a book that you haven't actually written yet. However, you can use October, even though October has already passed at this point, but some people use October as Preptober in order to prepare themselves for November and their goal to write 50,000 words. So what they sometimes do is outline, do some world building, do some character profiles, mood boards if you are into that kind of stuff, or playlists if you want to do that. Stuff like that that prepares you to write your novel in November. Now, as November is already tomorrow and October has already passed, we're not going to go into how you can utilize Preptober in order to prepare for your month of November and your goal to write 50,000 words. But let's dive into some of the other things that you could do. Some of the tips that I can give you are just practical things that you can prepare in order to win. So some of the things that I usually recommend to people is to block off your calendar. So figure out how much time you need to write the words. So if you usually do a 30-minute sprint and you can write 500 words in that sprint, then you know on a regular day you need 3 to 4 sprints to really cover the daily word count that you want to do. That comes into how you're going to plan out the rest of your month and how much time you need each day to really write that book. Now, I, for example, can, if I am really in the zone and I am like, I know what I'm writing, I could potentially pop out 1,000 words in a 30-minute sprint, but everyone is different, so you might want to kind of time how long it takes you to write a certain amount of words, or how many words you can write in a certain time frame. Once you kind of know how much time you're going to need to write the full 50K, so if you write 500 words in 30 minutes, then you know you're gonna need a lot of 30-minute sprints throughout the month to cover that. Now, with that being said, you kind of also want to check your calendar for any days that you might not be able to write and kind of account for that in your goal. So if, for example, you have a couple weekends or a couple days that you know you're not going to be able to do any writing, then you want to kind of write a little bit more on the days that you do write, because the daily word count goal for NaNoWriMo is 1,667 words if you round it up. If you want to do that every single day, that's great, but if you already know that there are going to be days that you're not going to be able to write, then you might want to up that word count a little bit. So sometimes what helps is kind of seeing, okay, there are going to be maybe 25 days instead of the 30 days that I can do the writing. Then divide the word count into those 25 days. Then you know you need 2,000 words each day in order to reach that goal. So 2,000 words each day of the 25 days that you are going to do some writing. That means if you write 500 words every 30 minutes, you need 4 30-minute sprints. And that will kind of make it so that you can plan it in. Which brings me to my next kind of tip. Make sure you calendar block. So what I mean by that is if you have some social outings or if you have people that want to meet up with you during November, either tell them no or say, hey, can we move this? Because you don't necessarily want to sacrifice all of your writing time. Sure, it's important to take breaks and important to also do fun things that you want to do next to your writing, but if this is your goal, you really want to commit and you want to make sure that you're going to have enough time. As someone with a day job, it is a struggle for me to kind of plan in my hours sometimes because I do work during the day for my day job. That means during the day I don't really have a lot of time to actually do the writing part of my life. So what I tend to do is either do them after work, or what I'm thinking of maybe potentially doing is doing it before work this year, which is still a little bit scary. And I usually utilize my weekends a lot as well to do a lot of writing because that gives me a little bit more time. I'm not usually working on the weekends except for doing my YouTube and author stuff, but not the actual day job stuff. So I know that I can plan in my time a little bit more flexible during the weekends, which gives me a little bit more time. So you can also account for that if during the week, for example, you know that you can't do the 4 30-minute sprints and you can maybe do 2 each day, then you kind of want to maybe shove the rest over to the weekend. Although that's going to be quite a lot on the weekend, but you might be able to. So with the calendar blocking, you can also maybe see, okay, I have 30 minutes lunch break that I could potentially use, or I have 30 minutes in between point A and point B whenever I'm traveling, so I could do some writing there. Or maybe you have 30 minutes, you know, before dinner's ready that you could do 30 minutes there. So you could split it up throughout the day. It doesn't have to be 4 30-minute sprints right after each other. Again, I'm doing the 30-minute sprints kind of example, but if you write faster or slower, you might want to adjust that to your word count that you can do during the time periods. You might want to also plan out your meals for the month of November. So instead of thinking, okay, what am I going to eat? Do I even have groceries? And then having to go to the grocery store on days that you might want to do your writing and it will cut into your writing time, you kind of want to prepare, okay, I know that I'm going to be writing this month a lot and it might be in the evenings or it might be whenever. I want to make sure that I can utilize my time wisely. So some people do an actual meal prepping weekend or something before. So they start making lots of food, put it in the freezer, that way they can just pluck one of the meals out, stick it into the microwave or heat it up some other way and eat that. So that saves them time from actually cooking the whole meal. Or if you are with a partner or with a family, you might want to ask them to take over some of the chores that you usually do, or maybe even the cooking that you can maybe ask them to do so that you can focus on your writing during NaNoWriMo. So if you have a goal of 50,000 words in November, you definitely want to prioritize your writing. So you want to make sure that you kind of shove to the side some other things that you might want to be doing. So if, for example, you want to be like, ugh, I don't feel like writing, I'm just going to do something else, that is not very productive and especially not really towards your goal. So you might want to really evaluate that as you are doing that. So definitely prioritize your writing. And with that, good advice is also to write more than your daily word count goal. So I know that the word count goal of if you write every single day in Nano is 1,667 words, but I usually try to aim a little bit higher than that. So if I can get anywhere close to 2,000 words, I'll be happy because I know that life can throw a few curveballs or life can get in the way sometimes, or maybe one day you get super sick or you have a migraine or something happens where it makes it so that you can't write, then at least you have some kind of buffer. Sure, the extra 300 words are not going to cover the full 1,667 words that you need for that day, but it will give you some time to still catch up. Because if, for example, the first 2 weeks I do 300 words extra every single day, that already gives me 1 or 2 days that I could skip in theory if I really needed to. Now, I'm not going to take that as, okay, I just skip this day, I don't feel like it. But I can do a little bit less on the days that I really feel extremely exhausted or where I have a huge headache. Then I can just say, okay, I don't need to write the actual 1,667 words today if I can't do it today because I already have written more. I do this because I know sometimes really life gets in the way or things happen and I don't end up writing. So that's something that I could give you as kind of an example and as advice. So try and aim a little bit higher and don't stop at the 1,667 words every single day. Just see if maybe you can get a little bit more than that, just so that can give you a little bit of a buffer for you. Set yourself a timer. Now, what I mean with that is kind of sit down and actually do the work. So sometimes you might not feel like writing. Set yourself a 15-minute timer, for example, and just sit down, do the work for 15 minutes, see if you want to continue after that. Sometimes what happens to me is I sit down and I get to work and I'm like, yes, I'm in the zone, I want to keep going. And sometimes I sit down and I'm like, I really don't feel like it. At least you've done 15 minutes of stuff, you've gotten some words down, you know, take a break, come back later. You know, you don't want to stretch yourself out too much, but definitely the 50K is a stretch goal sometimes, and it can be stressful to try and hit that. So I want to make sure that you don't stretch yourself out too much. So really kind of see if it is a goal that you can realistically do, or that you want to commit to, because it's not worth it to bring yourself out over a goal like this. So kind of make sure that you do what you can and think about your own, you know, health. A nice thing to do during NaNoWriMo is also join some live streams. So even if you don't have a channel, if you don't want to be on screen with people, you don't have to. There's plenty of streams going on. And what I mean with joining them is just watch them, maybe interact in the chat if that's what you want to do. You don't have to, you can just lurk if that's what you prefer. But having those writing streams or even productivity streams or whatever people call it these days, what you can do during those streams is really focus during the sprinting time. And then you have an actual break that forces you to kind of look up from your screen because people are talking, and you can kind of interact with them. And it feels like you're not alone in this. Writing can be a very lonely thing. And with the writing sprints or productivity sprints, it can kind of help you get a sense of community, and it can help you feel, okay, I'm not doing this by myself. Other people are also struggling, or I'm not the only one that might feel this way. And you can really feel like it's a nice experience to have it with everyone and not just by yourself, at least in my opinion. Something that I usually recommend people is also to get the words in while you're waiting. So sometimes you might be waiting for the bus, you might be waiting for the train, you might be waiting in the grocery store in line, you might be, you know, waiting somewhere else. Like, I don't know what else you could be waiting for. I don't know, maybe waiting for your food to be ready, waiting for your pasta to cook, I don't know, waiting for the laundry to be done. Like, I don't know, some things you might be waiting for. And if you are waiting, instead of scrolling your phone and looking through the next Instagram stories or looking at the next TikTok that you wanted to see or looking at those things, pull out your phone and actually pull up the Notes app or your preferred writing app if that has a mobile version, or maybe even a texting app that you can text to yourself on, and start writing. Just write down some words, write down some scenes, write down maybe even a story, a beat idea. If you were like, oh yeah, I remembered this and this and this, and I was thinking about that and that and that, and you might not actually have written it, but if you write it down, then at least you won't forget the idea. And just kind of utilize those waiting times. You'll be surprised how much you can get done while you're waiting in line. Now, there are bound to be many more tips and tricks that I could share with you on NaNoWriMo and how to win it. I'm sure I've forgotten some that I had in mind to share, but if you are wondering more about NaNoWriMo and want to kind of have another opinion, another thing, more information on it, then I will make sure to leave Emma Bennett's book on this in the description down below. She actually wrote a book on how to win NaNoWriMo and all the tips and tricks. Some tips and tricks that I have shared are also in there from me, so that you can check that out as well. But a lot of people have kind of contributed to this book as well with recommendations in the back from other authors, but Emma really does a good job of outlining what you might be doing or what you might want to do with this. So she shares her first-hand experience, and you can also get some other people's perspectives and some overall tips and tricks on what to do during NaNoWriMo that might help you. So I'll make sure to leave that link down below for you to check out, and there's plenty more tips and tricks that I can share with you, but I think for now, that's where I'm gonna leave it off with. So if you have any questions about NaNoWriMo, if you want any tips and tricks personally, or if you are concerned, let me know in the comments down below. I'm happy to support you. I'm happy to cheer you on. So if you need anything, let me know in the comments and I'll make sure to respond. So with that, I'm gonna leave you off, wish you good luck with NaNoWriMo, and hopefully you reach your goal, and I will see you in the next video where you might tell me that you've reached it. So yes, let me know, and I am hopeful to see you in my next videos. More flexible. And with that, I also mean that and with that, I think a good advice is also